Keto and fasting. They're very similar, but they also have many differences. In this video, I'm gonna tell you what's the difference between ketosis and fasting. By the end of it, you're gonna know which one should you choose and which one is better.
Fight!
First of all, I want to cover what are the similarities between ketosis and fasting, because both of them promote the creation of ketone bodies. The metabolic state of ketosis is characterized by elevated ketone bodies in the blood. Ketones are byproducts of fat oxidation that can be created by either burning your own body fat or eating low-carb, high-fat. Ketones have some pretty unique benefits, such as reduced inflammation and inhibition of inflammatory markers like NF-κB, TNF-alpha, and COX-2. Neuroprotection against seizures, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Protection against oxidative stress. Blood sugar stabilization and stable energy levels. Improved mitochondrial function. Activation of the NRF2 antioxidant system as well as glutathione. Suppression of appetite and cravings. Decreased growth and proliferation of cancer cells. Inhibition of HDACs, which are enzymes that are associated with cancer, aging, and oxidative stress. Elevation of sirtuins and NAD, which are associated with longevity. Most of the people who are doing a keto diet are also doing some form of intermittent fasting, at least every once in a while. But there are plenty of people who fast, but they're not eating keto. Despite that, those people would still experience some of the benefits of ketosis and ketones because they're fasting, and fasting is a very potent stimulator of ketone bodies. Ketogenic diets were originally created to treat epilepsy in children. Doctors noticed that their patients who had fasted didn't experience any seizures and their symptoms improved. This happens because ketones start to replace glucose in the brain. The problem is that you can't fast indefinitely all the time, and you eventually have to eat. A therapeutic ketogenic diet that's 5 to 10% carbs, 15 to 20% protein, and 75 to 80% fat mimics some aspects of fasting and keeping you in a semi-fasted state. It'll make your body produce and utilize ketones for fuel, which on the metabolic level has many similarities with being in a fasted state. However, there are some differences between nutritional ketosis and fasting ketosis, and there are many these unique benefits that you can't get from keto that you get from fasting. Here are a few examples. Cellular autophagy, the process of cell cleanup and recycling that gets activated under energy deprivation. You can experience some aspects of autophagy when eating a very low-carb, low-protein diet, but it's not that significant. Heat shock proteins. Fasting increases heat shock proteins, which are stress adaptation molecules that strengthen the immune system, fight infections, reduce inflammation, and trigger autophagy. Suppression of mTOR and IGF-1. Two anabolic signaling pathways, mTOR and IGF-1, promote muscle growth, cell proliferation, and immunity. Unfortunately, they may also increase the likelihood of cancers and accelerated aging. Eating low-carb keto does lower mTOR and IGF-1, but a complete suppression would require fasting and avoiding all calories. More growth hormone. Just 24 hours of fasting has been shown to increase growth hormone by 1300 to 2000%. Usually your body releases growth hormone a few times a day in small amounts, but while fasting, you experience these surges more often, and they have a more profound effect. Activation of stem cells. Fasting boosts stem cells, which have regenerative effects on the body, replacing old worn-out cells. Walter Longo has shown that 3 days of fasting can reset the immune system by activating hematopoietic stem cells. Gut healing. Fasting and fasting-mimicking diets modulate gut microbiota and promote intestinal regeneration. Part of it has to do with the activation of stem cells that reverses the loss of gut stem cells. Fasting also increases the activity of the migrating motor complex, or MMC, which is a mechanism that controls stomach contractions in a cyclical manner over 2 hours. The MMC cleans out the GI tract and helps to eliminate undigested food particles. Eating food inhibits MMC and not eating increases it. Circadian rhythm alignment. Time-restricted eating and confining your eating window within a certain time frame fits with circadian biology and keeps the body's circadian clocks more in sync with the day and night cycles of the environment. You can very easily disrupt your circadian clock with keto by eating too late or having irregular eating patterns. The biggest difference between keto and fasting is that fasting is going to activate more of the epigenetic pathways and genes that are associated with longevity, primarily sirtuins, NAD, autophagy, stem cells, and so on. The difference between them, between keto and fasting, is more like a matter of degree. The fasting aspect is just going to be more potent and more effective.
Disappointed!
Compared to any other diet, whether that be a vegan diet, paleo diet, carnivore diet, if it fits your macros, the Twinkie diet, then the keto diet is probably the closest you can get to actually mimicking a fasted state, but it's not completely fasting. There are still some benefits that you don't get from eating keto that you get from fasting. You really need to compress your eating in some shape or form to activate autophagy. In my opinion, the minimum is about 20 to 24 hours, unless you're lean and exercising already. But to reboot your immunity entirely, you probably need to fast for at least over 24 hours. Walter Longo's research has found that this is so because you need to inhibit an enzyme called pKa, camp-dependent protein kinase A. pKa inhibition signals the stem cells to become activated and start regenerating the immune system. On keto, pKa can be inhibited much faster because your glycogen stores are lower and you're already in ketosis. Fasting also promotes gut microbiome diversity instead of wiping it out. On the other hand, a ketogenic diet that restricts carbs and plants may lead to imbalances in the gut or a dysbiosis. Research has found that eating in a time-restricted manner over the course of 8 hours increases autophagy and other longevity genes related to circadian rhythms, which doesn't happen with eating 3 meals a day within a 12-hour window. Both keto and fasting, they have their benefits, but they also have their shortcomings. You shouldn't solely focus on one single strategy. You have to know when do you use them and how do you use them. Here are the pros of keto that you don't get from fasting. You get to eat. That's the best part about the low-carb ketogenic diet. Because keto does mimic some aspects of fasting, it's more sustainable to do it without having to fast that much all the time. 2. You can build muscle with it. Building muscle requires eating enough protein and calories, which you don't get while fasting. However, you can still build muscle and train with intermittent fasting as long as you eat enough. Higher satiety and less hunger. You might feel more hungry while fasting because of not having eaten. Eating keto keeps you satiated for hours, even if you just drink things like bulletproof coffee. Here are the cons of keto that you don't get from fasting. You can keep your body in a constantly fed state that elevates mTOR and burdens digestion. You have to be more strict with how many carbs and what kind of foods you eat to maintain ketosis. You have less metabolic flexibility because the body becomes less tolerant to glucose and carbohydrates. Chronic ketosis creates physiological insulin resistance, which isn't pathological but an adaptation to glucose deprivation. The body just wants to prioritize glucose for the brain, and the muscles become insulin resistant as to not steal glucose from the brain. Unless you're planning on eating massive amounts of carbs and sugar on one day, it's not going to matter that much, but if your goal is to be more flexible, then cyclical ketosis is the way to go. Here are the pros of fasting that you don't get from keto. Higher expression of autophagy, sirtuins, and other longevity genes. You can still eat some carbs while maintaining metabolic flexibility and going into ketosis during some parts of the day. On longer fasts, you can activate stem cells and trigger regeneration of the immune system. You release more growth hormone that can facilitate fat burning and anti-aging. Here are the cons of fasting that are avoided by eating keto. Fasting for too long can damage the thyroid more easily than eating regularly because you'll experience more stress in a fasted state. At the same time, being in chronic ketosis can also be more damaging compared to intermittent fasting, but cycling in and out of ketosis. Prolonged fasts on a non-keto diet will lead to more muscle loss than fasting on keto. Ketones are protein sparing and they protect against catabolism to a certain extent. At the same time, you can easily avoid muscle loss on daily time-restricted eating, even if you're eating carbs, as long as you get enough protein during your eating window. Truth is, everyone would benefit from some aspects of ketones in their blood, at least during some time of the day. And if you're not doing keto, you're not fasting, and you're eating carbs all the time, then you're kind of missing out on the benefits of these ketones. So you can choose which one you would like to prefer. Would you like to do some fasting, or would you like to just be more mindful about how many carbs you're eating?
If you don't use it, you lose it.
If I had to choose one which is better or more effective, then I would say that you would get most of the benefits of a keto diet with intermittent fasting, but eating low carb and keto, or at least being mindful of how many carbs you're eating and strategy incorporating them into your day, is also very effective. If you want to know how to optimize intermittent fasting, ketosis, autophagy, training, and food combining, then check out my metabolic autophagy masterclass. But other than that, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you click the like, subscribe, notification bell as well. My name is Seem. Stay optimized, stay empowered.
If you don't use it, you lose it.